Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now here's the guy who can finally say that I too was going to donate all the money to charity had I won my Survivor seasons. I'm Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our feedback show here at the end of a very interesting Survivor week. We've got a ton of feedback questions because people are dying to keep talking about Survivor 43. And we're so happy because we are joined here by a man who, that I think it's official, the king of Twitter is here with us today to talk about everything that's going on. Of course, you can hear him covering all sorts of different topics for years. Has been covering the challenge over on the Dom and Colin podcast. Also, he covers many of the hot dummies with Kirsten McInnes, talking about Love Island. And please welcome here with us. It's Brian Scally. Scally, how are you?
Hello, Rob. I'm glad to be here. Excited. Feel
Scally
like,
finale.
look at that. I'm excited. I feel
Hashtag use it, everybody.
I feel like a certain section of the fan base may say that we are in fact covering some hot dummies on islands tonight. So I'm excited to get into it. I feel like I've been lying beneath the surface all season and poking my head up now to bring out all the takes about this Survivor season.
Yes. Your edit was pointed to, everybody missed it. It was right here that you were going to be here for the finale to talk with us. And so we have a lot to get to here tonight. A lot of questions. A lot of people are talking about what does this all mean? Thoughts about of course, the jury, the winner, and we will get to so many different things here on our big Survivor feedback show here tonight on Friday evening. A lot of great podcasts already out for you to listen to. Just from me alone, the know-it-alls, my exit interviews with the final five. Then I had a really great conversation with Marianne to talk about what she thought about everything from Gabler's win. So check that out. Plus all of the other podcasts in our Survivor podcast feed. Everybody is coming out with their opinions on the finale. So a lot of stuff there. Plus, I still have one more podcast I'm going to do about Survivor 43 before we get into any postseason stuff. Survivor Academy will be back next week, the fifth part of our 5-part series, what future players need to know moving into when they go play in their season. And of course, the last one I did, which was really, really fun with Alex G from the creator of Survivor Philly and the Black Widow Brigade, was talking a lot about Jesse's move. But I think that now with the hindsight of it not being the winning game, I think it changes things in terms of how we process Survivor 43. So a lot of great stuff to still talk about. That's a patron-only podcast. You can hear that robswebsite.com/patron. Talked about this as well with the patrons on Patron Happy Hour earlier today, our call-in show. So you can hear that as well in our patron podcast feed. Scally, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I feel like I've enjoyed this season probably all the way through more than most. I always am here like as a people watcher first and foremost on Survivor, and I feel like this was a very fun cast to get to know. I think that we could have gotten to know them in their relationships more intimately, but as a cast, I feel like I know basically everyone here and a lot of their quirks, which I found super entertaining to watch.
Okay, first question comes from your co-host, Kirsten McInnes. How does Scalligator feel about a fellow Gator winning?
It's not what I expected. It's maybe not where I would have gone, but it happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you used Scalligator before?
I have heard that. I've heard Scalamander, Scalpaca, all of the above. So many different animals that, whether it be Kim or Omer, may label me as.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Did Cassidy need an animal?
I think that might have been it. I think it's branding ultimately. That's what it came down to.
Yeah, I do think that I was talking about this with Marianne yesterday, that the Cassidy curse, I feel like that was a postseason invention. I think that could have helped her at the final tribal council.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it was talked about even on the season. I feel like people talked about how, like, if you say, like, people are always saying Cassidy's name, she's a constant target. People are really like viewing her as a big threat in the middle of the game.
Mhm.
And if you say her name, you're ultimately going to end up going home. And unfortunately, I guess maybe branding is what it is. You can't like wait till the post game in order to get that out there.
The first I heard of it was, I think, in Sammy's exit interview. I think Sammy mentioned it. I don't know if it was something that happened on the island. So that's interesting to know when the first iteration of Cassidy Curse came up, because I think that would have been really good. We're here live. We can take your questions here in the chat here on. Just post it in YouTube or on Twitch, and then we can go ahead and flag that and get it up for us to answer here on this show as we go through everything. All right. Scally, let's just get your total big picture on everything where we stand. What were your Survivor 43 finale thoughts?
Okay, so my Survivor 43 finale thoughts were what? How is this happening? What is going on? I was shocked. I ultimately am someone who can't turn my brain off and views the show as like, oh, there's a meme and edit and edit and edit. So that's how my brain works, unfortunately. And so I have been analyzing who I think is going to win kind of subconsciously for quite a while. And I had prepared myself for a Carla loss for a little while. I prepared myself even for a Jesse loss for a couple weeks. But this ultimately was not what I had prepared myself for in a Gabler win. So I was enjoying the finale until a point where I was just dumbfounded, and not where I even started like disliking or anything. Like I just was shocked, and it made a second watch more thorough, I would say.
Okay, so what did you do a second watch of the episode?
Yes, I would
Okay,
definitely did a second watch of the episode. Maybe not all the challenges in 1x, but definitely went through a second watch of the finale and feel like
okay.
I picked up on more than the first time.
All right. Anything in particular that you felt like was particularly interesting from your rewatch?
So for the rewatch, I think that it was definitely obvious in the first watch that the jury was responding really well to Gabler, and that it was like going that way. Like it was much more positive than I thought it necessarily would have been. But I know Owen talked about in some of his interviews where he felt like it was a little bit word salady coming
Yeah.
from Gabler, and it's an impression that I got even watching the episode and the edited down. I thought there were a few points that I took to be like not exactly what the question was asking or kind of stumbling. But in the rewatch, I think it actually was more concise and tailored than going through. I think I was definitely looking for like, how did this happen? How did Gabler win? And I think that he spoke from a point of authority. He ultimately came out with things that were surprising to the jurors, and I think that's something that is super underrated. Where like Cassidy and Owen told them about their games, and it pretty much was like what they had expected to hear, whereas Gabler was like, what you didn't know was here's what actually was going on all along. And if I'm in the moment of the show and not actually watching at home, I don't know that I would be able to say definitively like, oh, that is not true and
Yeah.
did not happen.
So I was looking back at some of the final Tribal Council as well this afternoon, and one of the things that I noticed was that Cassidy was talking a lot about how, hey, I always knew where the vote was going. I was always in the numbers. I was voted with the majority. I'm wondering if like I know for so many of us, like we talk about like, oh, a perfect game. You voted the right way every single time. And we look at like the Survivor Wiki and we see how many times did you vote for the person that was going home. But I wonder if like in terms of like the like how people are viewing the game out there, is simply just voting with the numbers actually that impressive of a feat?
Yeah,
Especially when you did not play a big part necessarily in deciding who the name was going to be, but you always knew how to get the information to write down the correct name.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Is it's again branding. How do you sell it? I think that ultimately, if you are even a fraction of the decision making process, like that is impressive and that's good. And it depends on who's going to be evaluating that. But I think that Cassidy spoke in a little bit of a passive voice, at least according to the edit. So, for example, this isn't even Final Tribal, but when Cassidy and Carla have their conversation and Carla asks, how do you think that going to the final four with Jesse is going to set you up. And she says, like, well, I think I'll be able to have a good chance of making it to final three. And it's like, well, that's not setting you up as like, well, I feel like I'm at the top of that. I feel like that I am going to be able to get Jesse out and I have the best chance and I'm going to be able to win immunity. And I think that ultimately in the final treble, we saw like a little bit of that as well, where it was I made relationships and they helped me, not I like did this and assist and like was a part of the decision making necessarily.
Another thought that I had today about, maybe something that Cassidy could have done differently was when Cassidy gets asked that question, is it from Jesse about, what was a vote that you use your manipulation to sort of like sway the vote to go in a certain direction. I was surprised that she went with the Ryan vote of all of the votes when Carla had gotten voted out at the final five. And it seemed like that, we saw the conversation with Cassidy and Owen at the reward where Owen is like, let's go for Jesse. And Cassidy's no, I think it's really important for me to be able to distinguish my game from Carla. And ultimately, they end up going with Carla. I wonder if Cassidy was trying to like have her cake and eat it too, where she wanted Carla out of the game, but also wanted Carla's jury vote. And I wonder if she would have been more at the final tribal council, like pounding her chest and it's like, what was my move? I got Carla out at the final five because I knew Carla was a threat that we played together. It was going to be hard for me to be able to distinguish my game from hers. So I had to make sure that she was the biggest threat to me winning the game. And I got her out of the game at the final five. That was my decision. And maybe take like more ownership over Carla going out at final five.
Yeah, and I know that Carla has said, like, in the game at least, like, I think getting Jesse out at that point is a better move. But I think that owning something like that is definitely a big positive for Cassidy's game. And I think that you're completely right. That's something that was probably overlooked. I think that they were looking for something that she had been in charge of and she had made this whole decision on. And if you're worried about like losing Carla's vote, I think she's someone that's going to respect a really big move and ultimately like left the game being like, oh, I'm really happy that I went out as a big threat and like this is the good way to leave. So like you should not really be too worried about burning the vote any more than it already seemed to be, at least.
Okay. We have a lot of questions from the listeners. Let's see. Why don't we start to dive into some of them? And let's see. The great Regis Sue wants to. Do you think that the open forum tribal council helped someone like Cassidy or hurt her? Does having people interact throughout actually lead to a more thorough understanding of somebody's game? Like where are we with the Survivor Final Tribal Council?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it makes it harder for someone like Cassidy to like turn the tide because anyone can interrupt at any point. It's just like you saw
Yeah.
at many points during this tribal council, whether it be Cassidy talking about how the Ryan move was her move and it gets fact checked immediately in the moment, which might have happened if it was still one single person asking. But there were points where like Owen or Gabler were making things, or like Gabler was talking about voting out Ellie, and Janine jumps in with like, well, Gabler, you were right. Like anyone could talk at any moment. And so when you're having to turn the tide against you, you are having to turn the tide against 9 people who want to talk actively, let alone the 2 people next to you, rather than the one that's there asking a question.
Yeah, this is a really good point because I think that this speaks to, and if we go back and take a look at the, how this has gone, like this open tribal council format, it sort of coincides with when, Sarah won that season, but then immediately following that, that was where we had 6 men in a row win the game. And I wonder where, if like in the back and forth of, okay, it's Cassidy's turn to speak, and then it's the question asker's turn to speak, and then that's it. And there's no sort of like blurting and scrum that is basically everybody's just saying what they have to say. Well, actually, I do feel like that probably helps certain players who might not be as just as like as I don't know if aggressive is the right word in terms of like
Sure.
being like as forward as being a speaker.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair. And I think that that player is probably already going to have their game on display the most. They'll probably be getting the most questions because people will know what to ask them. And so when someone is a little quieter and is not likely to get as many questions, there's also then going to compound on top of having a hard time breaking into conversation in the
Yeah.
final tribal.
Lone Ranger in the chat is outspoken. That's a good point. Yeah, I wonder if Cassidy would have also benefited from somebody who was like really like her, David Murphy on the jury, of somebody who was like there was nobody that was like stumping for her. That was and maybe like James could have been that for her. Maybe she might have thought, but like had Owen been on the jury, I wonder if that would have been a factor where there's like somebody that's in her corner, like basically like helping make her case.
Yeah, I think that it's tough. I think that ultimately it would have been nice. I'm sure that Cassidy probably thought that Carla might have ended up being that person, and it seems to not have been the case. I think Owen would have probably been a better jury foreperson, like stump, someone to stump for her on the jury. But it just ran to the point where it's like, okay, well, I need to go against him more than I need him on that jury, unfortunately, for Cassidy.
Is that something that players should think about with their jury management of like, who is going to be my advocate in the jury?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good point. I think that when Carlo was even debating voting out Cassidy like a little earlier in the season, I didn't think it was such a bad move, both from like differentiating her game and making her not as part of a obvious pair in the game, but also to like get some more people on the jury who know your story and can actively stump for you.
Okay. Let's take some voicemails and let's take a voicemail and talk about let's talk about the edit a little bit.
I'm always down.
Okay. Actually, all right. Actually, so this one's not a voicemail. The voice of silence, a voice of silence, not a voicemail,
Okay.
says, "Did the editors do a bad job with their hiding all the different alliances Gabler had, or did Gabler hide his alliances from the camera people?"
It's possible. I mean, we know it's obviously been done in the past with Danny, back in the day, but Gabler doesn't strike me as someone who is either strategically hiding or just like too shy to tell his alliances to the camera. One of my major like questions in terms of Gabler's edit is when Gabler says that his plan all along was to go to the end with Cassidy and Owen. Like we saw him say that he had a plan to Owen to get to the final three. And so it does seem like maybe that actually was a forethought,
Yes.
but why didn't we see that on camera? Why didn't we see what his
They
idea
didn't want
was
to
in the
they didn't want to
follow
tell
through?
us.
Yeah, which like is fine. Like I don't know. I think that when you have like a more dominant player and you're trying to like make the end game a little more surprising, but it's not as if they set up Gabler to be a super reliable narrator in the past episodes, so I could have used one or two hints.
So I think that really Gabler, I believe Gabler did have this plan of what he was doing. I think that one of the things in the 26-day format of the season, I feel like that the story producers and the people that are on the beach, like I don't think they have time to necessarily follow every single story that's going on because we really are so focused on what's happening that day. And I feel like that they don't have enough time to really chase every single like let's get the perspective of every single player about every single thing that's going on. And I suspect a lot of like when they talk to Gabler, I think he kind of probably said the same thing. Oh, like, and we get that. He's like, I'm hiding in plain sight. I'm working with everybody. Like, I was like, and how many times are we going to see the same thing over and over again? But I think that people were just lulled into like a false sense of security with Gabler. So I do believe that he had all these different alliances where people looked at him as like an honest broker out there in the game where, okay, I can't really trust anybody, but I can trust Gabler, especially following the Ellie thing. He hated Ellie. He just blurted it out. I feel like that he's somebody that, he's not double dealing, even though he was. But he was just basically like, hey, use me as a vote. I think a lot of players thought that he would, he's good to keep around because if they're going for me, he'll tell me, before tribal council. So I do think that he had all of these like different relationships. And then at the end of the game, I think he was able to stand there. He was like, okay, like who had an alliance with me? You had an alliance with me. You had an alliance. And they all did. And but none of them like he wasn't trying to say like, and I was running everything. He's just like, yeah, I like you all thought you had me, but really, I had something going on with everybody, and like I managed a way to like to never be the target. I always and he never had his name written down.
Yeah, no, it's like it's super interesting because usually I am looking at who is the person in the final three that was never really like above the radar too far, who like consistently made it through this game without too many obstacles because everyone didn't realize they were a threat until it was too late and they were involved in the majority of the votes. And Gabler has that on paper. The way that we were shown it was unfortunately a lot of like, oh well, we need one more vote for this and who can we grab on at the end, and it seems like Gabler. And so he's saying basically at the end that like I had all these alliances and you didn't know about them, and I believe that more of them were probably like maybe a little more solidified. The problem is I do probably think also that Owen and Cassidy did have all these same relationships with basically everyone else also.
Mhm.
So I think what it is Gabler was better able to articulate that he got one over on them, whereas they knew everything else about Cassidy and Owen's game.
Well, if I could just in terms of getting one over on them, I don't feel like that he really even tried to say he got one over on them. Like I feel like he tried. He's like, and I got through.
Yeah,
And ultimately, like, and but I don't think he painted it in a way where he duped them. He
not
like he made. I think he really did a good job of and he made himself as like and you all helped me get here.
yeah, it was I was not trying to say as far as like I out strategized all of you
Yeah,
and I targeted all of you as much as it was like what you didn't realize is that me going under the radar was intentional, and it was something
right.
that you might have thought like I was just like a wild card player at the merge and then wasn't really as like involved, but like that was all intentional and it's what I meant to do. And so if I'm hearing that on the jury, like I can't fact check that in the moment. It sounds pretty impressive, and I think that it's something that people had asked like a Philip Shepard or some other people like why didn't they ever just come out with a reveal and say this was all on purpose and you all fell for it. And I don't
Hmm.
think that Gabler is the same player by any means, but I think that it might have been a little bit of the same effect.
And it's going back to something that I first observed in the Australian Survivor season one, that I feel like that the person at the final tribal council who is like the most animated, okay, and really like with the most like conviction, who's also and nobody's able to like say like no, that's a lie, that's a lie. Like if you can like get like some momentum going and nobody's like fact checking you, I think that Gabler had that going on at the final tribal council where like he wasn't sort of like and while that I know Owen said that it was a little word salady at times, like I think that they were feeling like, okay, well, like he's in the zone and he's saying he's really like animated and worked up about like and speaking with conviction, and nobody's like flagging like that's not true, that didn't happen. I think it's like a lot of momentum that was going his way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. He seemed very sure of himself. He was talking, and it was stuff that you could not really fact check, like whether or
Hmm.
not that he was conscious of this the whole time. So I definitely agree. I did also think about the Australian Survivor comparison. So I think that ultimately being able to come in with a strategy that people can't disprove it seemed to be the right move for Gabler, where some other people got pushed back on some of their claims.
Yeah, the strategy that you can't disprove, but also like with a lot of conviction,
For
and
sure.
he had both of those things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. So let's uh talk about, all right, how about the final four fire making? Okay, let's
All
take a
right.
voicemail from Joey. Do you want to just fire the opening salvo of how you're feeling with the final four fire making?
I'm always frustrated in the final four fire making.
Yeah.
For me, I completely understand arguments of like from a show's perspective, not even specifically about the final four fire making, where is it better for the show? Is it better TV? And I don't necessarily think the fire making is. So that doesn't hold much weight for me. I think that ultimately it would be much more compelling to watch Jesse or someone else like try to get votes and try to work anything that they can. And I think that it's not super interesting to watch, and is not interesting to watch people strategize around either.
Okay. All right. Here's Joey's question about Final Four fire making.
Hi, Rob. Joey from Omaha here. What I'm wondering is, has there been a paradigm shift in the GOAT position for this Final Four fire making twist? Since Chris Underwood stepped into the fire, no one who has won immunity has gone on to win the game. Is that person who gets dragged to the end no longer the GOAT, but the person who wins immunity and doesn't throw themselves in? The jury punishing the loss aversion of someone being too, quote, scared to go into fire making more than they're punishing the person who gets, quote unquote, dragged? Love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. So this is an interesting stat that I saw the other day, that nobody who's won the final immunity challenge since Chris Underwood has gone on to win the game now. 5 seasons after that. So is this sort of actually like a really negative indicator for people's games that they win the Final Four immunity and then they don't want to make the fire?
It's interesting. I think it is still a small enough sample size where you can say it's circumstantial, but I did see a lot of Chris Underwood broke Survivor on the timeline yesterday.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's definitely something in a lot more people's minds than you may give it credit for. I think that the conventional thinking among many super fans, including myself, is, why in the world would you ever give up the sure thing and go ahead and put yourself into a fire making, which can be determined by you got the wrong stand and the wind was stronger on your side. So it is very frustrating to see that it does hold such weight in so many people's minds, but I don't think it is a complete non-factor, unfortunately.
Yeah. In the different scenarios, let's just reset them. Nora wins immunity in and that was like a lost cause. She brings Tommy she brings Tommy to the end. Tommy's able to spin that as like, can you believe I got Nora to bring me to the end? Natalie, she wins that. She doesn't want to make fire. I do feel like that in Natalie's spot. I totally think that I feel like that was warranted. That she's in the same exact spot as Chris in the Edge of Extinction, where she came back in from being voted out of the Edge of Extinction. Like she probably needed to do that. So that seemed like a little bit of a passive move on the Natalie spot. So I get that in Natalie's position. Xander wins, right? And then Xander put Deshaun and Erica into the fire. And then
he brought Erica.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I forgot Heather's
You're good.
name. I forgot Heather's name. Sorry. Bad week for that. Yes. He put Deshaun and Heather into the fire. And then people were like, what? Why didn't you put Erica into the fire?
Yeah.
How could you?
Yeah. So I think if you do go back and look, ultimately anyone that did win immunity in those seasons since, even if they make the other decision, I don't think they're winning. So I think
Romeo wasn't going to win no matter what. Romeo could have made the fire and knocked out and beat Jonathan, and they probably still wouldn't have voted for him.
Yeah, so even going back to Natalie, I think Natalie probably does get a few more votes if she goes in and successfully takes out Tony and fire, especially if Tony goes out, even if he ends up staying and Sarah goes out. I think she gets a couple more votes, sure, but I don't think it's the decision maker in any season, except for what is apparently this season, where many people are in exit interviews saying that whoever won fire was going to win the game, especially if it was them taking out Jesse, like they were going to be the one to win the game. I'm curious if that ultimately is true. I don't know if I fully believe that to be the case. If Cassidy had won immunity and thrown Owen into fire, is Owen all of a sudden the winner of Survivor 43? I don't know that I believe that. So I am curious to hear moving forward what the case may be, but I think it's held more weight for sure.
So if Jesse won the Final Four immunity, would Jesse need to put himself into the fire?
No, and that I
Okay.
think is the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I guess so if you have like such a big lead, you don't have to do it, but if you don't, then you do.
Yeah, I think it's circumstantial. I think people are viewing it as one more thing to throw on the resume, even more so than the final immunity at this point. But I don't know that it should be viewed that way, unfortunately. I think like if you need to win fire to win the game, in most cases you've already lost, but apparently not in
Okay.
some.
This is a question from Fiona. If Cassidy put herself to fire and won, do you think she could be the winner of the season? If yes, then is it still an unreasonable expectation?
I ultimately I think she could have gotten more votes. I think that the final tribal council paired with how people came in feeling ultimately I believe at this moment that Gabler probably still wins. But I also think it's an unreasonable expectation for people to throw themselves in.
Yeah, I really think that, and again, who knows? Without talking to people that were like on the jury that were there. But I kind of feel like that for Cassidy, I just feel like it was a framing issue more so than had she actually done this, where if she frames it as like I was the person that got rid of Carla at the final five, that was my call, and ultimately like I made the call to vote out Jesse. Like she like was put into a position where she had to defend what she did as
Mhm.
opposed to like you're damn right I put Jesse in the fire because I knew that was giving me the best chance to win, and I put my assassin Gabler on it
Yeah,
because that was the best way to keep me safe and put Jesse in danger. And so I just feel like that maybe there was a way to spin things a little bit differently for Cassidy.
exactly. I think the problem comes where like Cassidy, in my opinion, should not have to justify it, but once she's
No.
asked the question and does, what she ends up saying is basically like, well, I already earned it and I think I deserve it and I think that I shouldn't have to do that. And like, oh yeah, Gable was best at fire. Where it's like, how about I made the active decision that the best chance of me winning this game was to throw Gabler in the fire. I know he's the best. One thing that I learned, like Jesse said when he played as idol, I learned from my friend Cody to take the sure thing as soon as I know. Like me being in the final four, like I already have the final three guaranteed. I'm going to take the sure thing. I already have immunity. Why would I risk my game for like a 50-50 chance at best in fire when I know that Gabler is 100% going to win and that's my win condition?
And I think another thing that may have hurt her also was I think that there was a perception that, okay, well, Cassidy really, okay, she was with the right people. But it was the other players that were making the moves, and she was sort of like the beneficiary of those moves because of the people that she was aligned with. And I think that the way that this came across was that, yeah, it's another example of Gabler did the thing and she benefited from the thing. And I feel like that because the way that she was like defending it of like, oh, I don't feel like I need to have proven myself in that way. Like I think I just like again, I think it was passive in terms of like really owning it as her decision that she was making as like a power move in the game.
Yeah, and I think that like if you look at every season where it's like, oh well, Cassidy wasn't the active decision maker and wasn't the biggest threat all game, and she only made it here because all the bigger threats were voted out before this. It's like, well, that's what happens every season on Survivor. That's what she's supposed to do is control her threat level, make sure that she's under the radar, and get to the end while taking out the bigger threats before her. But I don't know that that was articulated in as active of a way as it needed to be.
Let me ask you a question about Gabler from the Voice of Silence. Did Gabler get a lucky break with his signature move being within the merge, but not within the jury phase? Since when did the jury care about pre-jury vote outs?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have stuck to this of like, oh, but it was pre-jury, who cares? It's like, but everyone was there. Like,
Everybody was there.
yeah, there's a
It's a big
big difference.
difference.
for me between pre-merge and pre-jury. Like even the split tribal councils or like later tribal councils where Cassidy like definitely did have a big hand in the Carla vote off. Like a lot of the jurors weren't there to see that. It was really only her and Owen to discuss that. Whereas in early, you want to say the early merge, not merge, jury, not jury votes like that were Ellie and Dwight. Like everyone is there and gets to see who the power players are. And from their perspective, they didn't take Cassidy to be super active in that play where they Gabler is taking credit for that one when every single person on that jury was around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting that the LE vote ended up being like such an important part of the season. And just how like they all came in and he basically because Ellie I mean the Ellie and Gabler relationship is just is so fascinating from she saves him to then he tanks her game. And also him getting her out was sort of like the thing that he points to as being the reason why he should win the game. And Ellie was going for was it James or was it James 3 votes James 3 votes
Mhm.
Cassidy, like she was trying to go after Coco in that spot. So that definitely would have changed things up, like had Gabler not made that move. And so he does that and then also just like sets him up at a spot where I think everybody, like this was a merge, I think, where everybody kind of played very passively. And so he was like the one person other than Ellie like really willing to put some names out there. And so like he was not afraid and also because he was immune for that round, he was not afraid to put a name out there. And then but he was also able to, like, because of his perception in the game, then completely go off the radar because then he was like, oh, and correctly realized, like, okay, I have a really big profile right now. Like almost anybody else, especially in the modern era, they call a shot like that. All right, they're probably the next person to go home.
Yeah, it's interesting because even if you go back to that episode, I have looked, I was like, did we just like not take Gabler seriously because it's Gabler and it was portrayed like oh, like he's making this like great move. But even going back, people are saying like Gabler's an idiot. Like, what is going on here? And
Sure.
so the edit doesn't show us this. I would say probably 10 names are thrown around at that merge, 9 of them by Ellie. And so I think that Ellie more so like gets herself voted out in that situation where the vote was going to go like she was good to stay until Cody finds out that she's coming after her. But in the retelling at the end of the game, like no one remembers that. People remember that Gabler took authority and threw a name out there and he took credit.
Scally, I am very strongly considering going back and doing a full Gabler rewatch of the season to go back and see what's there and what's not there.
Yeah, I that's what even like you brought up the first vote, like to think that that's what leads to the merge, which leads to Gabler winning. Like, if Ellie just like decides to save Mariah, like this season is so incredibly different, and that's it. Just like, yeah, it's wild to go back and
Yeah.
even watch like just the finale was eye opening, but to go back and watch the whole season, I can't imagine it.
I really do think that people will appreciate this season more on a rewatch, where it's sort of just like that. Okay, well, Gabler is there, and nobody's like, yeah, they're talking about him a lot, but they're not really like nobody is worried about him as a potential person that's going to win the game. And he feels like that he is like I don't know if he's like playing secret agent, but ultimately it works.
Yeah, it's interesting. I still don't know that I'm going to be able to go back on a rewatch and see like, oh, this is how it was the story of Gabler winning. Like I don't think that every like card is there in the deck. I think we're missing a few. And like ultimately that's due to us getting like told a lot of the relationships instead of shown, and I don't think that
Mhm.
even all of them were on the screen including Gabler's, but I think that it's going to be very interesting nonetheless to watch it from that
Yeah.
perspective.
I just think that like I think he was I don't want to say a disaster, but he to use his words, he was very clumsy in the first half of the game. But I do think that somehow like the light bulb went off, and that there was a lot of in the beginning of the game they're showing him he's really not doing well. He's like physically like really feeling it. They're thinking about voting him out because that he is physically unwell, and he's able to sort of just like get himself straightened out. I think that when he wins the immunity challenge also, like I think that maybe that's where he like gets some goodwill from everybody. I've been talking a little bit about in Survivor the Amazon, where Mateo was kind of like, an outcast and not really like somebody who people really like were super warm to. But then when he won the immunity challenge and he ate the worm when like we were trying to get Dina voted out, in that moment, like he became like, hey, he's a weird guy, but he's our weird guy. And I wonder about Gabler winning the immunity challenge, like when he's like, carrying on. Like I kind of feel like that maybe, and that comes on the heel of the Ellie vote, where I think that maybe he like really earned some goodwill from the group in the way that like people were cheering for him and really respected that performance that he made in the challenge. And that kind of maybe turned his game around. I think that maybe even more so than the Ellie vote, that was like the positive turning point for him.
Yeah, that's the thing is like while Gabler is definitely a character and someone who people might want to throw, like I know I brought up Philip before, or like many others, I don't think that he is incapable of playing the game by any means. He's someone that I always looked at, and while I think it's really hard in the new era to like narrow it down to like this person is definitely winning, I mean I think I probably counted him out almost as much as I do anyone in the new era, but like not completely. I think okay, like Gabler still could get a couple votes at the end, and like that is just like because I noticed that people like did actively like him and wanted to work with him the entire time.
Yeah, they all cheered for him after he won that immunity challenge, and just the way he did that was just like so like bombastic and like in a such a big way. Like I think that he became like an easy figure for them to root for, especially the people that didn't know him super well at that point. So when I do my all Gabler rewatch, it's going to be a great podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Voice of Silence, who's got all the great questions today, did Owen sell himself too short with his answer about his signature move, which was basically, yeah, none? The jury appreciated the honesty, but still got no votes. Would it be better to give at least the jury a little ember that might ignite into a nice fire of half truths? Owen, he was, very self-deprecating in all throughout the game and in the final tribal council. He said in his opening statement, he said this.
Was I perfect out here? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
I think the problem.
Hold on, Scally. Can I just? Is that an expression? Has that ever been said before?
It's not one I'm using. I'm pretty on top of the lingo. I don't think Gen Z is not using it either. So I'm not seeing it trending anywhere.
Yeah. Is that a real saying?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
In some circles, not mine. Maybe.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think that the problem for Owen might have been almost that he's too self-aware and too aware of the game and doesn't want to like go ahead and take credit for a move that wasn't his, when maybe the argument could have been like if he was less self-aware, he'd take credit for something and maybe gets away with it. Or if he had made the argument of like sure, he doesn't think that he is the complete like arbiter of the James vote, but could have said like I actively like had relationships with Sammy and Noel and we worked together in order to get James out and yada yada. Like he could have taken like credit for percentages of certain votes and like I worked together to get to an alliance here where we controlled the votes like as a group, whatever that may be.
I wonder if for Owen that, and I feel like that Marianne brought this up yesterday, that he had like a good like start to where he was going, but didn't have a good like end after that to transition to like why he should get the votes. But I wonder if he like framed it more about how because y'all are so good at this game. Yeah, y'all had me like thinking this, thinking that, and and I bought it, but I didn't stop. I kept coming, and you all slowed me down, but look at me now, like I'm here. I won 3 challenges. I had nothing but my tenacity to get me to this point, and so that is, I thought maybe there was something there.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like it's still surprising to me, like knowing like of Owen for him to end up as like a 0 vote finalist, and so like he's not like the person you would expect to be there. I think that Owen though, unfortunately, is too big of a fan of the game where he realized pretty early on, like my game is looking like a 0 vote finalist, and I don't know how to get out of that. And so it's hard for him to like take himself out of like what he has watched for 41 seasons at that point and like argue against what he has seen over and over and over.
Well, he said at one point, like, "Oh, I don't want to get to the end and be a 0 vote finalist," which is like, I feel like I'm not a skier, but I feel like that, like when you go down the hill, like I'm not gonna crash into those trees. I'm not gonna, like, you kind of get tunnel vision. You can't tell the universe what you don't want, Scally.
Yeah, it's tough. I definitely do think it's a rough spot. I don't really even know where Owen could have gone differently. I look at a couple of like inflection points for some of these people at the end of the game, like where could they have changed things for them? And I'm sure Owen is going to say like maybe be a little more aggressive, and like he might have gone out earlier, but he also might not have ended up in a position where he's not the 0 vote finalist. But I think Owen acknowledged like he was just in like pretty much a dead spot in the game, unfortunately.
You know, if I was going to come up with an inflection point for Owen, I feel like there's a point, and I'll get there on my Gabler rewatch, because I'll have to watch all the Baca scenes. So there's a point where Owen is like, "Hey, I'm the swing vote here. I could either go with Ellie and Janine, or go with the guys, go with Gabler and Sammy." And I think he kind of like was, and I think that this is probably how I would have played it also. So I think he's tried to hedge. I feel like he's like, okay, well, I'm not really going to commit to either side, but I think that he was probably like 60-40 with Ellie and Janine. And I think that ultimately was the wrong side. And I wonder if he ends up saying, like, commits to Sammy and Gabler to the point where he's not on the wrong side of the first merge vote, because he votes with that he thinks that the Ellie and Janine plan is going to go through, and he ends up being the only person to vote wrong. And then he ends up, so okay, now he's on the downside of the numbers, and he wrote down James's name, and now James doesn't trust him, and James wants him out of the game, and then he's on like this whole like uphill battle for the whole merge, because he was wrong on the first merge vote. And we've talked about this on a lot of the different Survivor podcasts, of that the person who's wrong on the first merge vote almost never goes on to win the game. I think maybe it's only happened one time. The person who was on the wrong side of the numbers at the merge vote won the game. And I'm sure the chat will fact check me on that. So just being left out of that one vote, I think, was the whole thing that sent Owen's game into like a full-on spiral.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think it's extremely difficult to like look at a pre-merge spot, especially like that early on, and say that like this was the difference maker definitively. But I think that if you look through the rest of the game, it's kind of hard to find anything. The only thing that I even thought of is I was like, could Owen have taken like Jesse on the final reward that he wins and tried to like argue his case there of like, look, I'm going to be voting you out, but like, here's what I've done and here's why, like whatever the case may be, instead of Cassidy. Like, I don't really know what that gained Owen, unfortunately. And like, that was probably just a friendship move. But I don't think that's enough to win him really, maybe any votes, let alone the entire game anyway. So
it must have been so hard for Owen to go out there and be like such a big fan of the game, because I'm sure he came out and thought, like, when I get out there, I'm going to be probably the greatest Survivor player there ever was, because I know everything about the show. I'm a physical threat. I'm going to be able to win the challenges. There's never been a combination of somebody who is as physical and as social and knows the game like I do.
Yeah. It's really hard. And I think it shows like exactly how much luck ultimately does go into Survivor, because if Owen were to come back on another season, I'm sure Owen could do phenomenally. Like, I have no doubt that Owen could be a like all-time player in another timeline, but that's not the season that he ended up on. And that's unfortunate for him. But I think it probably happens to a lot more players than we think.
Okay. Let's take another question. This is about the jury, and this is from, let me see, we got so many voicemails. 6796. This one is going to be from Michael with a beard.
Hi Rob, it's Michael with a beard, long-time listener, second-time caller. I just had to call to let you know about the bet that my friends and I made.
Okay.
After episode 3 or 4, we decided that if Gabler won the season, we would all be getting Cody's tattoo in the same design and location as his.
Michael.
So Last night is a night I will literally never be able to forget. For the feedback show, I should probably have a question. Do you think that juries are a little too open to all the possibilities these days? It seemed like the only reason Gabler won, or at least a major reason, is because he handled Final Tribal so well. Um, should juries be basing their decision a little less on Final Tribal and a little more on things like dominating performance or underdog performance? It's just crazy to me that Gabler won. Please give me a reason to never go through this again.
Okay. Michael. Okay, so this is wild, Scally. So Michael is sitting around with a bunch of friends, and they say, boy, Gabler has no shot to win. If he does win, let's all get the Cody tattoo. And everybody agrees to this. Like, should everybody just say, you know what? That was a dream. We all dreamed it. Because there was nobody that was like, there's no winner to this bet. This is just like honor among thieves, right?
Yeah, living under the radar is what they're ultimately going.
Like,
I don't know.
This never happened, y'all. Never happened.
Exactly. I think that we can all forget, erase the voicemail. There's no record.
Yeah. So to get the Cody tattoo, wow. Okay. That's super interesting. Let's take the second part of Michael's question, which was, is the jury too open to possibilities at the Final Tribal Council?
I generally would say, like, I want the jury to be super open, and like I don't want them to come in there completely having written off anyone. My question is ultimately, they talked about having come in with a checklist for each player, and they had to check off certain items. I want to see what those checklists were and like what ultimately was ticked off. I'm really curious, like, was there a like easier checklist for some to check off than others potentially, and someone else may have had like a more of an uphill road to climb, and that's where we ended up, just like, oh well, 4 out of 6 were claimed, even though they were relatively easy. But that's what I'm interested in ultimately, is to find out where the checklist stands.
Scally, I have so many questions about this, because one, like, would we ever see it if the jury came in and be like, all right, jury, I gotta be honest, we're really feeling Gabler, Cassidy, Owen, you have an uphill climb. You're going to have to impress us tonight.
I do not think that they would show. I feel like I feel like Jeff would lose his mind. So, yeah, I think that would be heavily discouraged if that were to be the case.
Yeah. I have a theory that I've been kicking around about how the Survivor 43 cast, they have, they talked about how they saw Survivor 41. They did not get to see Survivor 42. The winner of Survivor 41 was Erica, who probably, story-wise, I think was a similar trajectory to what a Cassidy win would have looked like. Do you feel like that there was any sort of like a pushback from the jury of like, okay, well, we just saw that, and that was, is that the winning game that we want for our season?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much pushback of like, oh, 2 times in a row is so boring, or like anything, as much as there was a big faction of people of, why didn't Xander win, played like a more active game. And so I think that maybe there was that was why they ultimately were more open to hearing everyone's stories, and like maybe discredited Cassidy a little bit in that moment, but I don't know how much it ultimately influenced.
Yeah. So much goes into this decision in terms of like, because and ultimately there were 7 votes for Gabler. So like maybe like a vote's like, yeah, and I actually I really didn't like Cassidy. It's like, okay, but it's like, no, but actually the Gabler, like, I loved Gabler. Gabler really impressed me. So it's not like that the entire jury, like, just because they vote the same way. We saw at times during the season, people wrote names down not necessarily for the same reason, where that Carla wrote James's name down, not for the same, and wasn't even on the same side as Noel and Owen were.
Yeah, it's tough to figure out, because the jury has insisted that like they came in completely open and all came to this conclusion through the jury questioning, but it's such a big spread with 7-1-0
Mhm.
that I still am waiting to and like I'm still waiting to hear like Gabler had a masterful tribal council performance, or like we all just loved Gabler. He had such a good social game, and like that's why we ended up voting for him. Because when I'm getting the answer of whoever like went and then won fire ultimately was going to get the vote, but also, oh well, it wasn't decided and it's not only based on that. I feel like that contradicts
Mhm.
itself a little bit, and so I am still waiting to get further clarification
Yeah.
on like what was it that was so great that he got 7 votes necessarily.
The people that I would love to really be able to talk to about this are some of the people that did not like go out in the finale. Like I would love to talk to like Noelle about this, or Janine, Sammy, James, who was the one Cassidy vote. Why did why was he of the entire jury? Why was he not impressed enough by Gabler to and Gabler said, I thought I was going to get James's vote. Sammy, I know Sammy was tight with Gabler from Baca, but I'd love to hear what he has to say about this. So uh, I would just, I would love to hear from some of the people that weren't in like a very like emotionally charged finale where they, went out so close to the end. The people that sort of like were just had a little bit more time to process everything. Why did they all vote for Gabler?
Yeah, I agree with that. The only one I feel like I have a decent read on is we got kind of like a de facto jury speaks where they like throw in a couple comments from each, a couple jury members on each person. Noelle does talk about, in regards to Owen, how she would rather vote for an underdog than someone who was just sitting pretty the entire game in the majority and didn't have to make a ton of moves. And so while that doesn't manifest for Owen, I think it does explain Noelle's vote for Gabler a lot more versus like a Cassidy, where most people probably thought she might have been between. And so while like maybe Owen doesn't have the strongest argument at tribal council, and Noelle like ends up like, all right, well, I'm going for the other underdog in Gabler.
Um, I have another tattoo related question for you, Scally.
All right.
Okay. Amy says that Cody had a live-in tattoo on his butt. What tattoos do you think the final three would get, and where would they get them? Okay.
Ooh.
Um, all right. I guess the easiest one for me, first off, like, does Gabler have any room left for tattoos?
I have not seen Gabler's butt, so I could not speak
Mhm.
to the status of the tattoos there, but maybe that's
Mhm.
available.
Yes. Gabler, I think he needs the gator, right?
Yeah, that seems pretty obvious. Yeah.
That's obvious. Okay. For Owen, should he get Charlie Brown trying to kick the football?
I think Charlie Brown's a really good one, whether it be the football, the Charlie Brown shirt. I know he got a little bit of merch from them as well. So I think Charlie
Mhm.
Brown's a good representative for his experience.
Is what's the cutoff for young people even knowing who Charlie Brown is?
Oh, that's upsetting. They've stopped airing it like at holiday times, even on TV anymore. So I think if we haven't reached it, it's coming close.
I'm trying to think if my kids know who Charlie Brown. Now, Owen didn't know who I think Schroeder was. He said the stupid kid with the piano.
Yeah, as a Schroeder fan, that did make me a little annoyed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think that my kids might know who Snoopy is. I'm not sure if they know who. Like, I'll show them a picture later and see if they know who Charlie Brown is. But they definitely don't know
Yeah,
who Lucy is.
interesting. See, I always see Nicole throwing on all those specials at the holidays, so I'm a little surprised.
Maybe they've seen like Charlie Brown Christmas or Thanksgiving. I don't
Yeah.
know. But that's what Owen should get. Um, for Cassidy, I don't know what is there a tattoo for Cassidy?
Yeah, Cassidy is tough. I mean, maybe that comes down to the branding that we don't have, unfortunately. So I don't know if there's like a signature confessional from Cassidy that we necessarily have.
Maybe you get like that upside down bat. I think that would be a good tattoo.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Because that was a new puzzle.
That was, yeah, I liked the upside down bat. Maybe we go for like a 3 for the immunity wins or something, you know.
The House of
Oh,
Cards. Yeah.
I like Grace says in the chat, she can get a fox for wanting to play like a fox in her early
Want to play like a
confessional.
fox? Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right. Let me bring in then another question about the jury. Okay, this one is from Medi. What are your opinions on the different criteria in which the jurors judge the final three? They had a little bit of like in the final tribal council, right? Did Jeff officially abandon the outwit, outplay, outlast, and then go with the social, strategic, and physical?
Yeah, I'm trying to
Is
even
that
remember if this
confirmed?
was before this season. It definitely happened this one. I remember him moving into the different portions of like physical, social, etc. I don't remember if it was from a past season or not, but definitely I think it's better. I don't think it fixes necessarily the final tribal though either.
Mm-hmm. I think this was a first. I think this was the first time that they officially jettisoned it.
Yeah, and I do think that this final tribal was better than most of these like new school tribals, but like I said even before, I can understand if it's a TV perspective, but I could not tell you like one interesting moment from any of the new tribal councils. And I feel like if we're going
The
for
final
TV
tribal
moments,
councils?
yeah, I could not give you like one like iconic move. I'm never scrolling on TikTok and seeing like a TikTok of a final tribal council from season 34 on. That's never ever happening. And I will constantly see them from before season 33. And I feel like that's the best free advertising you can get. It's always
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Everyone always talks about it.
Yeah.
And when we talked about that there are problems also in this method for certain people to be able to stake their claim, then I think it's tough when it doesn't work for a TV perspective, which I would think would be their most important, and then also from a game perspective.
That's interesting. What is a final tribal council question that you see on TikTok a lot?
Oh, I have seen very many. I have seen the Trish one come up, and where it's
Yeah.
even people who like don't watch are going to be seeing. I've seen Sue Hawk, I've seen Reed, I've seen like a very large number come
Yeah,
up.
you know,
Like
this is
Natalie
a really
Bolton.
good point that I feel like that we don't talk a lot about, Scally, that yeah, that a lot of the show's iconic moments come from people like giving like their speech at the final tribal, and maybe you don't get one every single season, but going back to the origin of the show, the most famous moment in the history of the show was a question at the final tribal council, and they used to talk about like who got the Sue Hawk Award for best final tribal council question. And you know, you have that, and people Kelly Goldsmith tried to recreate that, and there's like people like with Big Tom wanted to know about the
Hmm.
hyena, and so yeah, there are so many great moments from that, and yeah, we've gotten rid of that. For
I couldn't
what?
I couldn't
Why?
tell you a single moment. And in like now 10 seasons, like I couldn't tell you a single moment. And I feel like that is such a negative indicator on how it's going.
Yeah.
I don't think that there are like many players that even like in the old format where you would have said like, oh, they only lost because it's not like in this new format. We've established that they're able to maybe even explain their game like less openly. So I think all around it's like a big fail.
Yeah, I'm just trying to even think why this even happened. And I feel like in my head, I feel like it was some sort of a like counter measure to that Aubrey didn't win against Michelle.
Yeah, and I think that maybe they thought like Aubrey was not given ample time to explain her side, but I think in this new format, you're telling me that Aubrey like doesn't get spoken over to like a massive amount by those jurors. No, so I think that she's given even less of an opportunity. She doesn't have the floor like she would in the old tribal council format, and ultimately we wouldn't have anything interesting come from it. I know people will say like, oh, there's some real duds in the jury questioning, but like we can edit those down. I would rather have 9 duds and one memorable moment than like one long dud of a final tribal council
Mhm.
anyway.
I wonder if it has to do with then the bloated jury sizes that we've seen in the modern era. Like I feel like that I think that we had a 10-person jury in Survivor Second Chances, if I remember. And then then we go to like a lot of 20 people seasons after that. And maybe they felt like, hey, this is gonna like these final tribal councils are just like getting too long, and that this will be a way to kind of cut it down. But Yeah, you're so right that there's, if we're going off of like trying to create good TV moments, isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah, exactly. I do want good TV. It's exactly what I want. And so, like, I could, people can quote like season after season different jury questions. And I feel like, well, I really enjoy certain members of many of the new cast and love that they get like more screen time and are able to articulate like their case as from a juror's perspective. I would definitely trade that for getting like iconic moments anytime.
Okay. Let's go to, and we're going to work on our letter to Jeff Probst later. So the final tribal council format is one of the things we're going to talk about. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Let's take a question this is from Ben, who has a question about the length of the season.
How's it going? This is Ben from Toronto. And this finale, I think, created a bunch of meta questions about like what is Survivor. And one of those meta questions, I think, is how is the 26-day game totally altered who wins these shows? So this season, just thinking about Gabler, but you could also talk certainly about Marianne and about Erica. I think Gabler benefited from 26 days, especially physically. Like, I don't think he would have lasted 39 days without being medevac or something happening. Like, he was so depleted, and that was so clear. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what else do you see from Gabler's game that maybe benefited from a shorter season, and how has this shorter season like changed the face of the game overall? Would love to hear what you think about that.
Okay, that is interesting. Do you feel like that the shorter game benefited Gabler in any ways?
Interesting. I definitely do think that it has a big impact on the game. I haven't really analyzed how it affected Gabler necessarily. In one way that I do think that it might have is more so in how it negatively affects a lot of like the bigger players games, where they don't really have a lot of time to like sort out the mess that they create by making a big move at a tribal council. And so once the focus is on them, it's really difficult to get that off in a day and a half before the next tribal council. Whereas if they had the 3 days, then they might be able to come up with a plan, re-strategize. The heat may come off of them a little more. And so I think maybe that's why we're getting some quieter winners in the edit.
I definitely think that in terms of how the edit goes, and I was talking about this a little bit before, I don't think we have enough time to get every single person's story and what they're thinking. And so I think that we're a little bit more, and again, this is rampant speculation on my part, but I think that we're really just getting interviews about what the producers see happening on the beach, and we're not getting every single person talking about all the different aspects of their game and where it might be going. And so I think that then when a shocking ending happens, like Erica wins, or like a Gabler win of the game, like I feel like that they just don't have the footage of that person talking about like some of the things that they're doing in their game. So I think it makes it a little harder to tell that story because we have less footage to work with and less interviews talking about different unlikely scenarios which could happen in the edit.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't really thought about too much. I had always thought about with the 26-day game of like, oh, well, there's less footage to go through and like there's less to talk about. There's just as much screen time for less, content to fit in. But if they're actually not getting to be able to even create that content because the time constraints are so tight,
and I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I'm just like trying to use some logic here. That we had in the old days. There was a whole day where we did interviews. That in the 3 days, you had a reward challenge, you had a day where you did interviews, and then you had, the day where you went to the immunity challenge, and then tribal council. And now I don't know what, when they're getting the interviews, especially if there is like a challenge and then you have another challenge the next day.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder if that's also contributing to why we're getting a lot of the telling and not showing of social relationships, because it's like, oh, well, now we notice this is happening and it's too late. We already went to another tribal council. Like, tell us why this happened in the last tribal, and tell us like why all of a sudden you seem to be close with this person that we didn't catch on camera until now.
And we get a lot of confessionals about the person who is like the front runner the person who is like, everybody's talking about Shan, everybody's talking about Jesse, everybody's talking about like, okay, finally, what Omer is doing, or who, whatever, Drea, or whatever, like the big players who seem to be out in front, but maybe not as much talk about what's going on with the people who are at the bottom and some of the more like unlikely winners to ultimately come out. And the 26-day format ultimately makes it more likely that the bigger players are going to get picked off, because everybody's like, oh, we're running out of time. Got to get the big players out of the game.
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons why the big players are getting picked off in the new era, and the shorter game is definitely one of those reasons.
And so the shorter time frame is like heightening like the threat level of the bigger players. And more people are talking about the bigger players, and there's not enough time to talk about the smaller threats, but the smaller threats tend to go on to win the game. And so we have very uneven edits where we are able to really tell the story of the people who are the threats, but there's not a lot of people talking about the ultimate winners of the game. So we don't have as much to put together to tell their story.
Yeah, exactly. Because while there are the same number of rounds in the game, maybe shortened by a twist or two, we ultimately don't even have enough time to deal with the things that aren't right in front of us. They have to go ahead and talk about like what actually happened at Tribal. Okay, how does that affect our game moving forward? And then like make a decision, rather than being able to sit on that and look at like, okay, yeah, they might be out in front, but like who is ultimately going to end up winning this game?
In Survivor 41, it's almost as if they didn't even like do an interview with Erica until she went to go to Exile Island.
Yeah. No, she was completely invisible.
Because her tribe never went to tribal council.
Yeah, definitely was, another one that caught me off guard until the last like episode or two.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then I think that Cassidy probably did not benefit from the shorter game, because I think that maybe players who are maybe more reliant on their social game, I think probably have less time to, use that social. I mean, she only merged with these people, on day 13. So there's not as much time, I think, to be able to like make those social relationships where she would have been able to like win the game off of the strength of like having the best social game.
Yeah, social game happens in the downtimes, and when in the like majority of time that they're out there, we are going challenge, tribal council, shuttle in between, then that's not going to leave as much time for you to go ahead and form those social relationships, but then also to capitalize on them.
And when I spoke to Cody last week, I asked him about, where's Cassidy in terms of everything. And he highlighted that, he said Cassidy and we had like a spiritual relationship, but he said that strategically, yeah, we were, he said that she was Carla's person. She wasn't really somebody that I dealt with. I didn't know where she was strategically, but he did feel like that he had a connection with her. It just wasn't a connection about the game.
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like ultimately we've heard like Cassidy kind of got lost in the post merge, and that whether because she was seen as behind Carla and James, and I think that in a longer season she probably has more time to get out from under them.
Okay, let me bring in another voicemail. This is from Jilly G has a voicemail.
Hey guys, so I'm excited to listen to like larger conversations about society and Survivor and all of that. But for right now, I'm stepping far away from that. And I'm just viewing Survivor as a TV show that we watch for entertainment.
Okay.
And on Wednesday night for a full 3 hours, I was excited. I was engaged with the TV show, and I was at the edge of my seat. And then I couldn't stop talking about it. But more importantly, the casual viewers in my life have also not stopped talking about it. I'm wondering if Survivor can feel this positive and negative energy. And I'm kind of thinking we're going to have to pay a lot more attention to these breadcrumb, super quirky edits, because at the end of the day, this made a big old splash and people are still talking about it. Do you guys think this is going to have an impact on future strategies or even future like editing viewpoints? And yeah, what are your thoughts? Thank you for all the podcasts and happy holidays to all the RHAP community.
Oh, thank you, Jilly G. Yeah. So this is, I think, an interesting perspective on this where, Scally, is it possible that the less invested you were with Survivor, like in terms of like how much you were thinking about it, the more rewarded you were from this ultimate Gabler victory.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. I think that people who were ultimately like analyzing every second of the show and trying to find like a coherent storyline, maybe were led astray and like did not ultimately figure out or end up rooting for Gabler because they kind of counted him out. And so I think that if you were kind of just coming at this on vibes, then maybe Gabler clicked for you, and look at that, all of a sudden you're happy at the end.
Yeah, it just was so out of nowhere and so unexpected. And I do say that, one of like, well, that I should say, like, one of the worst things that these shows can be is boring and predictable. And this was not that.
That's my thing is I want to be surprised every single week. I don't want to read this edit. I wish that it was like completely unreadable and like that was the case. My thing is that I would love to be able to rewatch and have it make sense. And maybe it's the case that like it didn't make sense in the real time and that's what it is. So like that's where we ended up. But as far as like, do I want to be surprised and am I happy that they're editing like mid-merge boots as big characters because they had a lot to do with the season? Like absolutely. I definitely want to have like people get equitable screen time based on like how long they stay, but also like how actively they were involved in the game, not necessarily because what place they come in.
Do you think, is it possible, is this a feature and not a bug of Survivor in the new era? Do they want us sitting there at, 10-10 in the finale, not knowing who the winner is going to be?
I think they've always wanted that. I just think that they are catering more towards an audience who is not analyzing it as like, as often or as like many hours of a day as maybe people who are listening to podcasts and thinking about it. So I think that maybe they don't want you to be like completely blindsided every time, but I think that they want it to be a question. I think that they want us to like not be certain going into even the final reading of the votes, ideally.
Okay. How about this question that is from Kiram in the chat, who says, all three New Era winners have been on tribes that went to tribal the least. Is that a coincidence or a reflection of the New Era game structure?
Interesting. I think that could be something worth looking at in terms of the shortness of the game as well. I mean, with no tribe swaps, with a much shorter game, I think that there's probably a lot less opportunities to form cross-tribal bonds. And ultimately, while I do think that we're getting not like a straightforward pagonging by any means, I think that you're going to lean a little bit more on people that you know better. And so if you have more people with you early in the merge, it's not surprising that you may end up with a better position later on.
Yeah, it seems like Gabler is a tricky one from Baca because I feel like that we kind of think of Coco as being the tribe that had the most power coming into the merge. Although like those two votes where we saw Lindsay and Gio voted out ultimately made it so Baca had more people going in. So I don't know. I think I am not. And last season, it was a 4-4-4, right?
Yeah, but it was that they didn't go to tribal one time, someone got evacuated, but like fine, or pulled, So I think that ultimately also if you're coming into like a 12 person merge with 6 people, then like sure your tribe is going to have the best chance because the most people are there. Like that's math. So I think the odds are on your side that the tribe with the most players will have the winner on it ultimately.
Math.
Yeah, exactly. Just math.
Scally, Tara Renee wants to know, Scally, which of your Twitter memes this season was your personal favorite? Did you have one?
Ooh, let's see. I would say a recent favorite. I did really enjoy the Owen chopping the log in response to if Gabler was trying to comfort me, saying that he was proud of me after I lost $1 million.
Yes.
Would not really comfort me that much, but Blank will not be the person voted out as always my number one favorite, but I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite of your children, I guess.
Okay. Scally, any thoughts on the Survivor after show? I'm always talking about the Survivor after show. The survivors themselves, I thought came pretty hard for the Survivor after show in the finale, in the post finale press, specifically Owen and Cassidy.
Yeah, I mean, hearing that Cassidy had like a nervous breakdown is very concerning, but also like not that surprising. I am almost more surprised that it has not happened like while they're still filming, because I feel like you get these people immediately with like Deshaun and Xander. I was like, this sucks. Like, I feel like I was tweeting in the moment, like this is like not fun to watch them just have to like grapple with this in the real time. And I know it has this like fun, we're all like celebrating the season vibe, but that's the last thing I would want to do if I was in either of their positions as a losing finalist.
I made a bet with Mike Bloom about would the pizza be back. I said yeah. I said no. Mike Bloom said yes. It was back. I made a bet with Mike Bloom about I thought that they would really try to minimize the Survivor after show. I thought that it would not start till after 10:30. I think it started at 10:17. Mike Bloom was right. So really, Mike Bloom, the knowingest voicemail at all, and I know nothing.
Yeah, maybe this was not the season that they wanted to stretch the gameplay the most in the finale. But I think that maybe it's something we could see in the future, but I do think that they are like pretty set on having a reunion show. I think that if not forced to go into this new format, it's not like they would have ever given up a reunion show easily in the past. So I did like the idea of having both the the on island reunion, if you want to throw on Paramount Plus, like a Zoom reunion for later, because I would very much like to hear what all of these people are up to and like how they interact when forced back together this many months later.
Jeff in interviews talked about how he's like, oh, we love, like he did a round of press. He talked to Mike and Dalton Ross, and he talked about how they love the Survivor after show and it's so much better. And he said because they look, it's nice to do it in person, but all the survivors just give answers that are sort of based off of like what people are saying on social media. And that comment just sort of like stuck with me because I'm trying to like, what is he referencing?
Yeah.
Like, when did this happen?
That's the thing is like you can say that they're based off of social media, but they're also like much more informed decisions where like answers where they actually got to watch the season and have opinions, see what actually played out. Whereas in the moment, like I'm not learning anything new from someone who was just voted out 2 days ago in general.
Okay.
So
Scally, of course, Gabler announced at the Survivor after show that he was going to be donating the $1 million prize to veterans to disabled veterans. He talked more about his plan for the money in the last couple of days. Scally, do you think it's possible that we will start to see more survivors potentially pulling a Gabler, and we might see more players come into the game inspired by Gabler with the intention of that they are playing for a cause?
I could see them also loving to cast someone who's playing for a cause, potentially in a future Survivor season. I think that if you are borderline and looking to get cast, maybe saying that like so desperate to, maybe that's a reason to say. I think that people ultimately are selfish and in need. So like not to take away, like I'm not saying it's not a legitimate decision to keep the money by any means. But like I think that you are needing to find a very specific person who is able to and willing to donate an entire $1 million that they may not have otherwise.
Yeah. So I think this is my prediction. Mark the day and time, December 16th, 2022. I predict in the next year-long cycle, Survivor 45, Survivor 46, another player will come into the game saying they are going to donate the $1 million prize to a cause.
Yeah, I was gonna say over under 2.5 players
2.5,
in the next like player. I think it's extremely likely. I think they love this.
Scally, could somebody ever potentially come in and like do like a Johnny Fairplay-esque? Hey, I'm going to donate the money to blank, and at the Survivor after show reveal. No, I was lying.
This is incredibly brutal. Like, I am someone who, like, when it's discussion of like, oh, did Carla take it too far, like threatening to go through with like, you know, poisoning the jury, like very little is off bounds, obviously, on Survivor. I think that you know, following through with it is another story. But I would say that going ahead and claiming you are going to donate and then not actually following through would be a step too far.
Yeah, I don't think that person would even get on the show in
Yeah, I think
modern
that's
times.
rough.
But go back to the point you raised about Carla, about the idea of I am going to, and I talked about this a little bit with Marianne. The idea of I am going to, you can vote me out, but I'm going to go to the jury, and you won't win if you vote me out of the game. Is that a point that is inbounds or not to you?
For me, I think it's inbounds. I think it's largely ineffective and isn't like the best argument that you can make. I think that it is inbounds if you choose to follow through with it. Like, that's your choice. I think that that does leave like a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth if you do actually follow through with it. But as far as making that threat, I have no particular issue with.
Yeah, to me, I think it's a little bit like going through the bags thing. Like, it's the kind of thing where it's like, look, that's part of the game. Like, people do it. And so, you know, you have to, you know, I guess there's like only a couple different ways that you can play it. You know, you can try to appease that person, but at that point, like, I think the damage is kind of already done. Or I think that what you could do is I would try to get out in front of it where, you know, if you're Cassidy at the tribal council where Carla is going home, where you say, like, you know what, like, you know, I'm just like really disappointed in something I heard on the beach today. Carla told me that if I get her voted out of the game tonight, she was going to poison the jury against me. And I just think that was like, that's beneath her. Carla, you're too good for that. And then sort of plant the flag with the jury ahead of time of like, hey, be on the lookout. This is what's coming your way.
Yeah, and I think it, first of all, would help to neuter someone's ability in turning the jury against you, but also maybe give you a little more agency in the move of getting Carla out. Of like, I went to Carla and told her, like, this is what I am doing, and I was like trying to make this play, and she has then like made this threat against me. And I think it makes you look more like a shot caller in that moment, even.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about something else that came up at the Survivor after show, Scally. Jeff Probst said, hey, we love to hear from the fans, which this has not been my experience with Survivor.
Yeah.
But we want to hear
these days.
We want to hear from you. Hold on. That correct me if I'm wrong, Scally. Did Jeff Probst not say in Survivor 41, he's like, hey, I'm Jeff Probst on Twitter. You can tweet me. I'm probably not going to read it. Did he not say that?
Yeah, fair. Like, look, he does not have to. I think that a little introspection from fans is not going to hurt. But yeah, this is not the line I usually thought that they were taking.
Yeah. Does Jeff Probst want to hear from the fans?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. Only on the street.
Yeah. Only the fans on the street. Okay. So they gave out an email address, Survivor shoutout at gmail.com. Scally, what do you think about this decision from Survivor?
I think not springing for like an at Survivor CBS was an interesting call, and going with the Gmail account. I think maybe we could have afforded it. You know, like, it can't hurt, but I can't imagine how they're even going to get through like 100 of these emails, let alone all of them. I think this is definitely a curious call, especially when like so much feedback is readily available out there already.
Okay. So, Scally, I was wondering, could we put together an email with some of our best ideas and thoughts about like how to improve Survivor, and then send it off?
Ooh, I like this. I like drafting an email.
Okay.
You know that I have many thoughts on how Survivor runs, especially in the new era.
All right. And I thought that to make it really good, we could enlist the help of my personal assistant, ChatGPT. I use this constantly throughout the day to help me. And I thought that maybe we could just like load up like a lot of the things that are important to us into ChatGPT. So of course, this is the very incredible that it is the AI that is predictive text, and then so you can put together all sorts of different thoughts into coherent sentence structure, unlike myself, and then we can use that to write like a really killer email to Survivor shout out.
There we go. I've heard ChatGPT has come up with great emails, great questions in the past, so I'm excited to see what it can do here.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and what are the things that we want to make sure that we include in this email? Okay, I think we're talking about the final tribal council format. We would like to go back to jury questioning format.
Yeah, let's get some iconic moments. I want to get Survivor back on TikTok. I feel like get it in front of some fresh faces. That's one of the easiest way. Apply to Gen Z. Jeff loves young players, young new players. To get in front of the 16-year-olds he's trying to recruit.
Okay. All right. So let's just tell Chat GPT. Okay. Let's can you write an email to the producers of Survivor to tell them that the show needs to return to the original final tribal council format.
There we go.
Because there were more iconic moments.
Exactly. Exactly.
Questioning format because there are more iconic moments. All right. What else, Scally?
I mean, while we're at it, I would love to talk about the fire making, I guess. I feel like that's another thing that's always on people's minds.
Okay.
Yeah, I think whether you want to go like more iconic moments, I think that ultimately, even Steven brought this up where the question of like, did Jesse make his move too soon? I don't know if Jesse does make the move that early if fire making's not in play. And I think that fire making, people knowing that they don't have a round without idols or don't have as many rounds towards the end to take out a big threat leads to a lot of these big threats going even earlier than they might have before.
So why should they get rid of the final four fire making?
To keep big threats in the game longer, even.
Because it will help the big threats stay in the game.
I mean, that would be ideal for me. I don't know if Chat GPT will agree, but
because it will actually help the big threats get to the end.
Yeah, and won't make it as, imminent for them to be targeted before, because if a big threat is good at fire, now all of a sudden you have to get them out mid-merge instead of right at the end.
Okay, this is good. Should we say that it should be a certain kind, like can you write a compelling email?
I like compelling.
Like compelling is good.
I like it.
Okay. What else? Lord, anything with the twists?
I don't know. See, so my thing with the twist, my thought is also that I know Jeff was frustrated saying that he thought there was this social contract where people weren't making big moves. I think it's tough. A lot of people commented on no live tribals, which isn't something that I necessarily missed, but I think
we did get a live tribal at the final five.
Right at the end, that is true. I thought we were going an entire season, but I think that having so many twists is inspiring more conservative gameplay, because you switch up something at the last minute, all of a sudden someone has an idol you have to work around, an extra vote you have to work around, and these big twists might actually be holding back even bigger moves.
So, all right, so we want to say that the more twists are making the players play more scared. Is that what we're trying to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Also, there should be less twists.
Yeah, especially less public twist
in the game. Plus, it makes the players afraid of making big moves because they don't know what advantages are in the game. Okay. Also, I have found that when famous people tell Jeff Probst some things about the game. I feel he's a little more receptive to that than just like a rando sending in an email. Could
That's
we potentially imply some very famous people like agree with these ideas?
Yeah. Do we have any celebrity endorsements coming in from ChatGPT?
Can you imply that there are a few Hollywood celebrities that also agree with these ideas? I should say also. I'm not asking.
Yeah,
okay?
there we go.
We're going to tell ChatGPT who's boss. Also,
this is not optional.
Yes. And then end the email. Actually, this should be a compliment sandwich. Okay.
I like that.
Start the email with a compliment about Survivor. And end the email with a compliment about Jeff Probst.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Let's see. I see.
Does the chat have anything? Go back to simple hidden immunity idols, Boston Rob. I guess that's a celebrity.
Yeah, I see the bunch about this having immunity idols be secret. I feel like, you could talk about that in advantages.
I think that's like really we're getting in the weeds. Okay. All right. So let's see. Bring back fire tokens. Okay. All right.
We've gone too far.
Okay. All right. So let's see. All right. We put the computer to work. ChatGPT writes, "Dear producers of Survivor, I just wanted to reach out and express my thoughts on the recent seasons of the show. First of all, let me say that I am a huge fan of Survivor and have been hooked on the series since the very beginning. The social dynamics, strategy, and gameplay have always kept me on the edge of my seat, and I have always admired the way that the show manages to bring out the best and worst in its players. So far, this is killer, Scally.
Better than anything I could write, for sure."
With that said, I do feel like the show could benefit from returning to the original final tribal council questioning format. There have been some truly iconic moments in the show's history that have come from this format, and I believe it would add an extra level of depth and strategy to the end game. I also think it would be a good idea to get rid of the Final Four fire making twist. I got a network error.
This was so good. Someone screenshot.
Someone get the screenshot. Oh my god, it was too good.
Right?
It was too good. They hacked it. Okay. All right. So luckily, I hit it again. Okay. This opening I feel like is not as good. It says, "I just wanted to express my admiration for the enduring legacy of your show. Survivor has consistently been a source of entertainment, inspiration for me, and I know I'm not alone feeling that way. With that said, there's a few changes I believe will enhance the viewing experience even further. In particular, that it would be beneficial to return to the original Final Tribal Council format. This format has produced some of the most iconic moments in the history of Survivor and would allow for more meaningful and substantive discussions about the gameplay of the final contestants. Additionally, I think it would be wise to get rid of the Final Four fire-making twist, as it tends to benefit the bigger threats in the game and detracts from the strategic element." That's not really what we're saying.
Yeah, I think maybe there's an editor too. I think the first version had it right.
Yeah. Instead, I believe there should be less twists in the game overall. Too many twists can make players afraid to make big moves, as they are unaware to what advantages may be in play. I've also heard from a few celebrities who are fans of the show and agree with these ideas. I believe this one's not good. Okay. That we need to tell ChatGPT, can you name the celebrities in the email?
Yeah.
That'll
this needs to be legitimate.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
You know celebrities random email. No, it's okay. All right. It says, "I'm sorry. It's unnamed specific celebrities. I'm just a text-based AI. I do not have access to real-world information."
Interesting. I feel like it
Okay.
started out really strong. I don't know if I'm believing.
Yes. Okay. I think that Sam sent me a screenshot of the first one.
Okay.
Okay. In the first email, they said, I've heard from a few other Hollywood celebrities who also agree with these ideas and believe a return to the original format and a reduction in twists would only enhance the overall viewing for the fans of the show. In closing, I just want to say that Survivor is an absolute masterpiece of a reality TV show and has continued to captivate audiences for over 20 years. The host, Jeff Probst, is a true master of his craft and has always done an exceptional job of guiding the players and the viewers throughout the game. Thank you for all the hard work and dedication that you put into making Survivor such a beloved and enduring series. I mean, that was great.
That was honestly
I nailed it with the first one.
Throw in I missed the Jeff Probst talk show, and I think you got a perfect email.
That was great. That was
there
great.
we go.
All right, so looking forward to seeing what people are going to be sending to the Survivor shout. I wonder if maybe Scally, they should have put the email address on the end of the episode last week and not this episode.
Close the mailbox. If anyone wants to BCC me on their emails, I'm open to reading. But no, I think I would love to be able to read the inbox of Survivor shout out. If all the emails are that good as ChatGPT.
Do you think, Scally, in any way that they were like, oh, well, this will be like, this is great to sort of like, this will let some of the steam out. Like if people have to have an outlet of the place to go and write their angry emails, then they won't be on Twitter as angry.
Exactly. Yeah. Put it in the DMs. Don't necessarily be sending it out for everyone to see. And that'll make Survivor a lot happier.
Like, I can't imagine that they, like, the emails that they get were probably what, like 99 out of 100 angry emails.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
If that, that's conservative.
Exactly. I cannot imagine how many Cassidy was robbed subject lines they have in their emails right now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We have a couple other wilder things to get to. I had a listener write in and say that we should take a look at Gabler's Survivor audition tape.
Ooh, this I have not seen.
Okay, I haven't seen it either, and so let's see. Okay, I got an email that said, "Hey, you all need to look at Gabler's audition tape because it's really good, and so we should check it out." Okay, so hold on.
Right.
Let me see if I can bring this up for us here on the podcast. Okay. All right. So, Scally, are you ready for the latest winner of Survivor? How did he do it? How did he get on the show? Okay. Here we go.
I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but here we go.
Mike Gabler Survivor audition video. Okay. All right. Let's check this out. Let's go into theater mode. Okay. And let me know if you have any trouble hearing this. I see some goats here. Maybe he was the goat. Okay. All right. Here's Gabler's audition tape. Okay, so that's Gabler is howling like a wolf, would you say?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I already see 3 memes. So
hiding in plain sight for sure. Okay. Yep. So yeah, there's Gabler in the lake.
Okay.
Rock on. So now he appears to have some sort of a I recognize this is like some sort of like a branch cutter.
Oh, okay. I was like, what do we have going on here?
Yeah. So this is like if you're gonna like it's like almost like a little chainsaw that you could use to cut down branches of trees. So now he's like on an ATV.
Yeah, driving through the woods, it seems.
Okay.
Are you saying Pan or Pam? Pan. Hey, Pan. Anyhow.
Pan or Pam?
I truly can't tell. I did notice the
what are we talking about?
All I noticed was the aggressive handlebar mustache that was going on.
Okay,
that was all I saw.
And now Gabler is on a mountain.
Good morning. This is Mike Gabler. I'm 49 years old. I'm originally from Texas, but now I live up here in the beautiful state of Idaho. I'm an aneurysm and transcatheter heart valve specialist.
Wow. But I will say what Gabler did is like shock and awe. He got their attention. Somebody's watching 100 videos. It's like, all right, same old, same old, same old. All right, I'm awake. I'm awake now.
Yeah, it was high energy at the beginning, and then I do also think we jumped right into a very unexpected moment of Gabler in the operating room after the beginning of this.
Oh, I think I meant this one. Yeah.
No. Well, that as well.
Yeah. And much like Gabler's game this season, really, it's a shock to the system in episode 1.
Exactly. Yeah. The first minute is going to say, I'm not taking this seriously. And then later on, you never know.
You never know. Okay. So there you go. There's Gabler's Survivor audition video. So you can check out that's out there. And, look, it was memorable.
It was. I understand why he got the call.
Yeah. All right. Scally, then we have been talking a little bit about some of Jeff's had some interesting social media over the last couple of weeks that we chronicled Jeff Probst at the CBS holiday party, but Jeff has been making like Instagram videos. Have you followed any of this?
I have seen the ones that you have discussed, and I'm tried to come in blind for anything that we might be talking about here.
Okay. All right, so let's check out what Jeff is talking about over on the Survivor Instagram page. And so let me bring this up. Okay. Jeff has been like answering questions. He's like playing like a truth or dare.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
So this is Jeff's truth or dare. And so here he is. Let me just turn the volume on here. And so Jeff is going to tell a story about how we came up with the Survivor catchphrase.
Survivor 1 Borneo. Okay, we had just started shooting in tribal.
Well, where does he like? It said Survivor 1 Borneo on the card, and so he just goes into it to like tell a story about a season.
Apparently, I do not know exactly where we're going, but I'm open.
Okay, all right.
Council was still a couple of days away, the first tribal. And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was on the air, and the host was Regis Philbin.
I remember.
And he had this line, is that your final answer? So I felt like we had to have a line like that. And everybody was looking at me like, get over it, man. Let's just do the show. And I had a big whiteboard, and I was writing all of these lines, and all of them were terrible. And I'd bring people over, and I go, do you see anything here that could work? Like after we snuck the torch, what do I say?
What do you think about this stock footage we're using, Scally? as a person who creates a lot of content for social media.
Yeah, these look like my early memes. I feel like we're trying. We're trying.
Did you have a big whiteboard that you were just like showing them to people?
I feel like, this could have been made in Snapchat, but
okay.
It's progress. Nobody had any ideas. And finally, it's the day of tribal. And I'm talking to Mark Burnett. I said, we got to have a line. And he's like, okay, well, here's what you say, Jeff. You say, you stuff the torch and you say, well, obviously your tribe don't want you around no more. I went, yeah, this doesn't really ring. He goes, okay, I don't know what to tell you, Jeff. The tribe has spoken. And he walked off, and I went, oh my God. And then, the funny part, we said the tribe has spoken, and then I was doing an interview that season, and they said, where did that phrase come from? And Mark said, I don't know. And I had one little birdie right here saying, take credit, take credit. Another little birdie saying, tell the truth. That's the truth. Mark Burnett came up with it, one of his crazy, weird ideas, and it stuck.
All right, there you go.
I did not know that. I feel like, maybe instead of putting Jeff's face on both young Jeff and Mark Burnett, we could have gone with like the TikTok filter with like the mouth and the eyes. Might have been a little better of a call. Edited in some birdies on his shoulder at the end. All right, but it's a start.
Okay. Well, so that's the real life Jeff Probst. Okay, and he's telling his different stories. A lot has been made though with the two-dimensional flat Jeff Probst. Okay. Of course, Jeff hosted the CBS holiday reality party, and so that he had his chance to hang out with Flat Gail King and Flat Shamar Moore and Flat Tony Romo. But here is young Sheldon. Okay, you star of the hit CBS series Young Sheldon, and he got a chance to visit with Jeff Probst.
Aunt Beth got me into Survivor, and I am absolutely obsessed with Jeff Probst now. He is so cool, and I want to be on Survivor. And the second I turn old enough, I'm going to apply. Just hanging out with my...
Hold on a second.
right.
Young Sheldon is dying to be on Survivor?
You know, I feel like young Sheldon has been on for 11 years as is, so I'm surprised he's not yet old enough. But that show's going to keep him under contract for a little longer. So
how old is young Sheldon? Yeah. Oh my God. So I guess the actor is 14.
All
so
right.
Jeff has famously said, Scally, that 16-year-olds should apply for Survivor. So that means we're 2 years away from young Sheldon being on Survivor.
I think Jeff would cast him now if he had the opportunity.
I think he would.
Yeah, I really do. And that's concerning.
Because you know it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
Oh, no.
Give me an analogy. What would old Sheldon say if he was here right now? Bazinga.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, young Sheldon loves Survivor.
But Jeff Probst.
Now, young Sheldon is stroking the two-dimensional Jeff Probst, like touching his hair.
You know, I'm not super surprised. I feel like many people would take the opportunity.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, Mr. Jeff.
Mr. Jeff. Oh no, what is he like, Jonathan?
So that's Sheldon's future. Oh no.
You know, nobody in season 43 did the Mr. Jeff thing. Do you think that maybe players that made it all the way to the end through season 42 that we'll see Mr. Jeff come back in season 44?
I hope not. I think it's possible though.
Oh no.
Young Sheldon could be on season 44 for all I know, so it's possible.
Yes. Okay. Young Sheldon and kind of young Jeff also,
Yeah,
if you think about it. Okay.
So cool. Oh my gosh,
Okay, that's young Sheldon. Aunt Beth got young Sheldon into Survivor. He's not like in character, is he? Is Aunt Beth a character on young Sheldon?
You know, I could not tell you. I have not caught it. You know, what is it? Before or after Survivor? And young Sheldon has not been on my watch list.
Okay. Scally, what else do we need to talk about here with this finale? Was there any other parts of season 43 at large? Have we seen these survivors on Cameo yet? I feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't take a look at that.
That's a great call. I have not seen checked out Cameo at least. I feel like
well, let me see if because then I can ask you prices if they're there.
Yeah, I'm not looking just yet.
All right, Survivor 43, and somehow on the so I'm looking at the Survivor 43. I typed in Survivor 43 in Cameo. Somehow I'm looking at the results. I see my own results come up first. I don't know if that's because I'm me. But then I see somehow this is pretty interesting. Look at Survivor 43. Myself, Jerry Manthe, Troy Zan, Jeff Probst unavailable, Shane Powers, second row kicks off Ken Bone. Why is Ken Bone showing up here on the list of Survivor 43 Cameo?
And above Sandra, that is so rude. So rude to Sandra. I am upset. You know what? Have ChatGPT put that in the letter too. I want that fixed.
Yes. Okay. So please fix on Cameo that Ken Bone should not be listed with survivors, and certainly not above Sandra.
Yeah, that is offensive.
This is like the new Island of the Idols: Ken Bone and Sandra.
Oh, please no.
So
anything but.
I don't see the Survivor 43 players listed yet on Cameo.
Not back from their finale get-togethers to be going on Cameo.
Yeah, not back yet, but usually like that dam will break, and then they'll all be on there in like one day.
Yeah, I do think that basically everyone you can expect there. I feel like a very fun cast. You can get some good cameos out of these people.
Who would be some of the ideal people from Survivor 43 you would want a cameo from?
Ooh, I feel like if we're going for big personalities, I feel like calm down a little bit in the second half of the season, but early on, I feel like you're getting a great cameo from Cody.
Yeah, Cody is going to give you a good cameo for sure. Hey, what's going on? It's Cody. It's Cody. We're living to get radical.
Exactly.
He's gonna hang loose. Yeah. So that I think that Cody would be a very, very good one. I'm trying to think over the course of the season. I think you have a lot of good candidates here. Trying to think who might give you a really wild cameo. I mean, who knows? I mean, with the Gabler ones, I mean, you might get that yell.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. You do not know what you're going to get from a Gabler cameo. It's going to be something for sure, though. I have no doubt.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Who's got going to have the highest price point for cameo? Do you have a prediction?
I think you got to go. See, I feel like Jesse could be, but I don't know that Jesse is the type to put himself at a super high value. So that's
gotta get that money, baby.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go Noel.
Noel?
Pick off the board.
All right. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe by the end of the weekend, we'll start to have some cameo action. Of course, that Liana won the draft this weekend. I saw that somebody was asking for a draft recap of how it all worked out. I don't have the exact way it went down. Scally, do you mind if we brought Sam Moore in to that? I'm sure he knows it by heart. Okay. Sam, do you have the draft update?
Oh, I do see it in the chat actually as well.
Yes. Okay. Let's hold on. He's let's bring in our production coordinator, Sam Moore, here with an update of how did the draft play out?
Okay, so started things off with Asia getting grenaded, unfortunately, with Mariah. So
yes, okay,
was out. I think her other team was Dwight and so
and I mean this in the lovingest way possible. I think we were just looking for the short version of.
Oh yeah, no, that's I was going to yada yada the rest of it. I just thought the highlights. The grenade there. I'm very sorry, Asia. Better luck next time. Liana won with Gabler, but she also had Jesse going into the finale. So
Liana is the winner of the draft.
Liana is the winner of the draft.
I owe Liana a Gabler cameo going into next season.
Ooh.
Here. Liv helped us out from Twitch. There's the whole thing. Anybody we want to talk about's there.
Yeah. Becky sent me an email to say that do you ever do a postseason podcast with the draft players? That she could have used a draft update as part of the weekly coverage, like in the feedback show, to show who still has the players in. Maybe for next season, maybe we can just have a meme, an Instagram post going, and then we update it every week of who's in and who's out.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
I like that.
For the season 44 draft. Yes, Sam.
Yep. No, I was going to say the other final three was Shannon had Cassidy and Chappelle had Owen.
Okay. So. Sam, anything else that we should make sure we cover here on the feedback show today?
I think this is a really fun one.
Okay. All right. Sam, thank you so much. Okay.
No problem.
All right. Of course, this is just the tip of the spear right now, Scally, in terms of our coverage of the Survivor 43 finale. Of course, the rest of the podcasts from the whole team are going to be coming your way over the weekend. Of course, we will have, in addition to Why Everybody Else Lost, the Why Gabler Won podcast from David and Jessica, not to mention Survivor Global, the final stock watch of the season that Mike and Liana are going to close out the B&B, and also then the Purple Pants podcast Survivor News Edition. Also, we'll talk about this whole end game of the season.
Super exciting.
And I know everybody's like, hey, when are the deep dives going to be kicking off? And as soon as I know, I will I will tell you, faithful listeners, okay? There's, that basically the way this works is we got to get the green light from the survivor shout out at gmail.com. And once they say we're ready to go, we will bring you all of the deep dives, as many as they let us do. Okay. I'm looking forward to getting into it and hearing more from the survivor players. We just have to, it's a little bit of a process. Okay. So hang in there with us, but we are working on it. Okay. Scally, any final thoughts on the Sia money?
Ooh, Sia money. I feel like if Sia sticks around for the after show, I feel like, and like, all the way through, I feel like Jesse really raised his profile on the Sia money down here in this finale.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that Noelle was kind of the lock for it, but then I kind of feel like that Jesse might have snuck in. I do wonder if Sia, it could be moved potentially by Gabler's gesture, potentially. But if she gives Gabler money, is it really just going to go to the charitable causes that Gabler's already supporting? Is it impossible to give Gabler money because he will always give it away? So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I would love, whether it be Sia, CBS Survivor, like matching Gabler's donation, that would be amazing. But otherwise, yeah, I can see Jesse and Noelle really as the two front runners for the Sia money, whether that be equal or, varied amounts between the two of them.
But sometimes Sia goes off the board.
It's true.
You might be like, oh my God, Owen, like he was such an underdog.
She could be a Cassidy was robbed person.
Cassidy was robbed. Yes.
Yeah. We need Sassy Cassie's got to get the money. Needs to give her the money here.
Although I feel like that is not the typical archetype that she tends to go after.
I would be surprised
if
it was a Cassidy donation here from Sia at the end.
Yeah, last season it was Drea that she was very moved by. So maybe it's the person that it could be Carla. The person that gets the Suri music.
Ooh, interesting. I do think that there are actually a lot of people in play here for the Sia money. Now that we talk it out,
could be wide open finale also for the Sia money. So check that out. Great comment here from Melody, who says, as far as entertainment goes for deep dives, Amazing Race, Claire, and DX set a high bar. That was on Tuesday night. We had a great deep dive with Derek, X, and Claire about their game on the Amazing Race, which was super fun. You could check that out as well on RHAP.com. Scally, what else is coming up for you?
For me, I'm going to continue talking about the challenge over on the Doming Holland podcast, and then waiting for a couple other shows I follow to come back. I think Love Island UK might even have a winter season, so we'll see how that goes. But I think that, anything I'm doing is over on Twitter at Brian_Scally. So jumping around plenty over there.
Okay. We still have a lot more to come. We will be doing our Year in Survivor podcast coming up on Wednesday night. We'll have the Year in Big Brother coming up on Tuesday night. Both of those podcasts will be live coming up for you this week, plus everything else we have going on over at robhasawebsite.com. Scally, thank you so much for joining us for the Scally finale feedback show.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun. I cannot wait to, keep talking about Survivor. Was super excited to get to be here and ready for season 44 already.
Okay. Season 44, about 10 weeks away, but we'll have plenty to do in between now and then. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the feedback show here today. Looking forward to talking some more Survivor 43 with everybody. Take care. Have a good one.